A few years ago, I was at my first cervical revolution course, and that is the PRI seminar that discusses the neck and the cranium. And I was lucky enough to be used as a model because in that course they talk about something called a right torsion. And a right torsion is a position that the cranium finds itself in, or that you find the position of someone's cranium in. And it is a, let's just put it this way, without going into, I actually made a video about it, you can go look at that, but it is a way that your brain, your system is stabilizing an unsteady cranium. Because, or an unsteady body. It doesn't have to just be the cranium. It could be an unsteady body that in order to protect everything up here, things over tighten on that right side. So it's called a right torsion. It'll have an altered, a lot of times you'll find the right eye higher than the left. A lot of times you'll find ear flares on one side. Everything just looks a little bit off. And I've showed pictures of my old face, and you can get an idea of what a right torsion can look like. The interesting thing was that when I was being used as the model, because I was the right torsion, but clearly I also had a crossbite. So my jaw had swiveled over to the right and had created a crossbite situation in the anterior portion of my mouth, lateral anterior portion, the canines, which was a crossbite. And crossbites really mess you up because they confuse your brain. Generally, if you bring your teeth together on the left side, like this, the right side should open up, and vice versa. If you bring the right side together, the left side should open up. When you have a crossbite, that's not happening. Now it's sending mixed messages to your brain. You're going to develop you're gonna develop muscle activation patterns that are uneven through your jaw and cranium, and these temporalis muscles and masseter muscles and pterygoid muscles, which are all really important muscles, that can all get thrown off. So you have a couple different issues that can arise from having a crossbite, whether it's an anterior crossbite or a posterior crossbite. So the fascinating thing was Ron, the founder of PRI, he brought me up in front of the class and he tested me. And I failed. My pelvis was neutral, but everything above the pelvis was completely locked up. And he then took a little mouth guard. Remember, I had a crossbite. He took a little mouth guard. You can get them online. They're just a little small thing. And he put it over my bottom teeth. Now, my test didn't really change afterwards, but what he had me do was just get up and walk around because I was lying down on a table. And when I got up, I almost fell down. And then I was nauseous for about an hour and a half later. And I could never quite put that in perspective, why my reaction was so bewildering. Why? Because that doesn't happen with most people. Well, I've never seen that happen to anyone else. Most people just might feel a little weird, especially when they're doing the technique that's used to get someone out of that right torsion position, and they'll feel a little odd, but not to the point that you put something in someone's mouth and they almost fall and they're just completely discombobulated for an hour afterward. That's not normal. So I was wondering why that happened. So what probably happened, and this is not going to happen to most people, but it can. If you've seen my videos before, and I've talked about my visual system, and I was only using one eye, mostly my right eye, for the first, 40-something years of my life. Doesn't mean I wasn't using my left eye at all, but at least to a degree, the left eye was being suppressed. The image from the left eye was not being incorporated into my overall vision. And so, because that is instability, that is visual instability. I only was using one eye. That is instability. That's not a normal, that's not normal. So I was most likely using my right torsion. I was creating not that I wasn't doing this consciously. My brain had said, okay, this visual issue is unstable. This is a threat. How do I stabilize an unsteady body? Well, that right torsion is how it was doing it. And that position of my body caused, and the muscular activity associated with that position of the body, caused my jaw to swivel to the right and make improper contact between the canines. And that's called the stomatognathix system. And my brain was using the stomatognathix system to stabilize my whole upper half because of the visual instability, because I couldn't use a normal visual system to help stabilize my body appropriately. I had to go to my stomatognathix system and that right torsion. That's how I was stabilizing my body. Putting that mouth guard in to take away my bite, that completely destabilized me again. It took me out of my fake stabilization in the point that it was real stabilization, but it was pathologic. It was not good stabilization. That mouth guard took that away, and because I still was not using my left eye completely or wholly, I'm not sure which one it would be, my brain I got up to walk around and I stumbled and I almost fell down. My knee buckled, I almost really fell down, and I was not feeling good for about an hour afterwards, maybe an hour and a half. And people saw it. People to this day are like, yeah, I remember that. And they weren't sure if that was real or not. And I assure you, that was my real reaction. Now it makes perfect sense. I wasn't using if I had a functioning visual system, that would not have happened. I would have been like, oh yeah, feel a little weird, but no biggie. But because I wasn't, your eyes are 80% of what goes into your brain as sensory information. Remember, your brain is blind, has no clue what's out there and what's down there. Your brain relies on accurate sensory information going in through your eyes and coming up through the ground, particularly on the left. When you don't have that, that is threatening, that is confusing, and you will tighten as a protective mechanism. He took my protective mechanism away, and I didn't have a functioning visual system that could pick up the slack, so therefore I am out of it. So that was the reason that I reacted so strongly and almost fell down. But now, that is not most people, so I know I'll get comments like, oh, I think that's happening to me. It's probably not happening to you. You could be using your teeth inappropriately. That's not abnormal, but usually most people just feel a little bit too much contact on the right side. But it does happen quite often in other parts of your body. So one of the more normal occurrences is to find what we call a pathologic left hip in the front of the left hip. Because we're in this pattern for so long, and we have to get left leg has to externally rotate, but it's positioned to the right, so it has to do this to keep us straight. Over time, that can stretch out ligaments. And now you've developed laxity in the front of the left hip. Well, when that happens, your brain, you have a couple options. All right, it's like, how do I now stabilize a pathologic left hip in the front? Well, you could tighten up a little bit excessively in the back of the left hip. That's normal. Your hip flexors could turn on extra. That's normal. Your lower back could turn on to help stabilize that pelvis, because now you've got not only a lax left hip, but you've kind of got an unstable pelvis also. But the number one way that most people are going to probably compensate is just by not going to the left. Superior T4, it is a breathing issue, but it could also be an issue of where your brain does not trust that left side. So instead of allowing your weight to shift completely to the left, you put your weight on your left foot, but your upper body stays to the right. See that all the time. Someone who's just tighten up this whole right side as a protective mechanism, because your brain's not going to let you go to that completely unstable left leg. And that's how these patterns develop and then advance and get stronger and stronger and stronger. So in some cases, some people will have something going on in the cranium that has to stabilize. Whiplash, concussions, concussions. Those are the two big ones in terms of blunt force. Any type of trauma to the head or the neck where it has to protect, you can develop these kinds of situations because the stomatognathix system is really strong. It works. The problem is it's detrimental in the long run. And that's what we have to disrupt. So in PRI, you're disrupting those inappropriate stabilization patterns, whether it's up here or just in the left hip, and then you have to repattern and restabilize with the appropriate muscles. But the only way you can do that is by restoring proper sensory integration. Again, most people don't need it through here and here. They just need to sense the ground better, particularly on the left side. Sensing the ground on the left tells your brain how to stabilize that left side without using the ground. If you just do a left hamstring or a left adductor, or tell me how to strengthen my left glute medius, that is irrelevant because you're going to be doing it in the wrong position. And until your brain can sense the ground on the left, so your brain knows the ground on the left is there, you're not going to strengthen those muscles with the pelvis in the right position, with the rib cage in the right position. So it's not as simple as just doing strength training exercises. That is not what this is about. It is all about sensory perception of the ground on the left. When you cannot do that, the difficulty is if someone cannot get out of their pattern, they simply can't stabilize. That's when you have to think about where is this inappropriate stabilization coming from, and that's what you have to work to reduce, and that can be a little bit more complicated. Well, it is more complicated. But the simple idea of all of this is you have to sense the ground on the left. Nothing in my life allowed me to sense the ground on the left. And if you think this is about strengthening muscles in the conventional sense of weightlifting, it's not. So when people say, oh, can I just do this exercise? No, well, you can, but it's not gonna work for what you want it to work for. If your brain does not know you are on the left, with your weight fully aligned on the left, with your pelvis in the right position, with a foot that's pronated, sensing the ground in the appropriate area, left heel, underneath the left heel, with the arch of the right foot telling your brain to turn off the right side and to turn on your right glute and to turn on your right serratus to get you over to the left, none of it works. So sense of the, well, I'm not gonna say none of it works, but you can still get results, but you have to understand that sense of the ground on the left is what we're going for with your body in the proper position. And if your body's not in the proper position, you're really not gonna have sense of the ground on the left. So they go hand, it's not either or, it's both at the same time. So I just wanted to throw that little video in as a way to kind of help people understand the idea of stabilization, how you lose stabilization, how you make up for lack of stabilization, and how you need to restabilize. It is not about getting stronger muscles in the conventional sense.